A whole new chapter for India as it is finally made in India. No more foreign time systems for the country. The country is going to be using its own satellite to navigate its time. This is essentially an atomic clock, and it's going to be telling and powering the entire country's idea of what is the right time as India syncs with the future with accurate time and, of course, a secure nation. We're going to be talking a little bit more about that on the show. And right from his recent very prestigious win of the Padma Shri to his multiple already existing wins on the Grammys. We've had Ricky Cage on the show before, but not after he's won his new award, what it means to him, why he says it symbolizes a new chapter for Indian music and Indian sound. We have him later on the show. First, let's talk about the biggest shake-up the tech world has seen in the last few years as the Chinese AI platform DeepSeek has finally entered the chat. Now, what is DeepSeek and why are we hearing about it everywhere? It's not just another AI company or platform. DeepSeek has disrupted everything we thought we knew about AI and, more importantly, what it costs and what it takes environmentally to develop something like it. Now, the fallout we're seeing in the last few days is huge. A 1 trillion sell-off is taking place in the US and European stock markets. Nvidia alone took a $600 billion hit. It's been called the biggest single-day market loss in US history. Now, DeepSeek isn't using the massive GPU clusters that OpenAI, Google or Anthropic have become known for. Instead, it's running on open source technology and super efficient model training techniques. But what does any of that actually mean in simple terms? Essentially what it means is that China has built advanced AI at the fraction of the cost. And it's already forcing investors, nations, and even the biggest tech companies to rethink and reevaluate what they thought is necessary to create a powerhouse AI giant. Just last week, the US had actually announced, and this is under the US President Donald Trump, $500 billion on Stargate. It would have been the largest infrastructure spend of this kind in history, and the goal had been, Stargate's goal was to build data centers and computing power for AI companies like OpenAI to compete globally. But now the release of DeepSeek changes that. Is this kind of investment going to actually be necessary? That's why DeepSeek isn't just being called a tech story. Its rise has sent shockwaves through the global AI race, obviously in the US primarily, but also in other countries too. Now, as we talk about China and the US, there's also this other crucial question. Where is India in this conversation? In the last few years, we've seen some incredible innovations. We have AI models built for our multilingual populations. And we've had some of those founders here on TBC too. But that question, are we lagging in the global AI race? Where are the Indian names when we talk about AI competitors like ChatGPT, like Claude, now like DeepSeek? Where are the Indian names? And also, we do want to touch on, and we will be talking a little bit today, in the last few hours, we're learning that DeepSeek is throwing up some interesting search results. Now remember, DeepSeek is open sourcing smaller versions of its R1 model. What does that mean? That means that developers can now run AI on standard laptops. They're not relying on external servers. And what this essentially means is that when you're using it, we're being told that it's secure and it can be trusted. Can it actually be trusted? Does the conversation stop there? And what about the search results DeepSeek is throwing up? So a few internet users said that DeepSeek was actually avoiding questions about Arunachal Pradesh and other northeastern states. In the India-China question, what does that mean? Should Indians and can Indians use DeepSeek to the degree they'd want to? To answer this and more questions, we have a number of guests with us here on the show. I'll just introduce you to both of the experts joining us this morning. So first we have Atul Tripathi. He's an AI and quantum and cyber security expert. He's with us this morning to tell us and break down everything we've just talked about. We also have Deepak Kapoor. He's a cyber expert who will be taking us a little further into the conversation. Okay, Atul, if we could come over to you first. I just want to ask you, initial thoughts, as we've seen over the last few days, the internet essentially go gaga over the release of DeepSeek, and it's now actually been a few days. I want to ask you, how much of that excitement is an overkill? How much of it is very, very worthy?
So good morning to everybody, and good morning, my co-panelists. So the question happens to be, how much is it an overkill? Now, let me put it this way: every new product has its own excitement level, right? So remember the products that were launched, whether digitally or physically in the world, and we had all these excitement. Now, as far as DeepSeek is concerned, it is definitely a path breaking as being claimed. Two reasons: one is the lack or the not so much of computational power that is being used, and two, that the benchmarking that they have done against the other large language models, or LLMs as we call them, that seems to be better. Now, however, having said that, these are the very initial days before we even come down to the question, or we are able to answer with confidence that we are in the right direction, or whether it's hallucinating. The ethical considerations have been taken into consideration. All the ethical parameters. How are they able to explain the models? What is happening? We need to exploit that further before we even come down to the conclusion that yes, it is very, very good and it's far better. But having read the research paper, one, and having downloaded the open source model itself, it looks good, frankly speaking.
Okay, Atul, just stay with us. Let's go to Deepak to understand more. Deepak, I want to understand from you. On the internet, everyone is saying that it's a side project. So part of what makes DeepSeek so special is that for the company that invested and created it, the hedge fund that created it, this was not the main thing they were trying to do in China. This was a side project. This was a few young developers in their 30s, all of who had attended some of the top universities within China, and then they'd created this. How much of that is real? How much can we confirm for our audiences in that story?
Hi, good morning, everybody. Your viewers, the anchor, my co-panelist. Thank you for having me. Just to clarify a little, while you introduced me in a single sentence, I just want to say that, I've been working a lot with technology and I've been working on policy. So, I mean, to say that I'm a cyber expert would not be entirely correct. Yes, I've done a lot of policy in cryptocurrency and I know how to use the tools to well, let's say I'm not very likable among people who commit crimes and extremely high-end things, especially when it comes to country security level. So yes, I do have a little interest and knowledge about what you said. Now, coming back to what you just said, I think it's your statement itself counters, the question. You said there's this hedge fund. Hedge fund means a lot of money. You said it is China. We all know what China does. You said that it is people from extremely good universities, well-educated people, which means they have the talent and the expertise and the technology. Now you put them all together. Now where does it land us? China has a track record of doing things. So anything that is China, I think we have all the major countries who have doubts about Chinese equipment suppliers, especially technology. And I think, bar none, everybody is, accused China of snooping in some way or the other. So what I would initially, I think it's initial days. I think this is another step in China's dominance plan. I think they are looking at economic warfare. They are looking at technology warfare, and this is where the wars are leading us to. And the big goal is economic dominance again, which they seem to have lost after the COVID battle. It is also a battle of perceptions. And I think this entire thing, including cryptocurrency, and I worked quite a bit on cryptocurrency, including on Hamas and other things. And I was covered, I was with Anand Narasimhan earlier on the Israel thing during the war. I look at all these things not as isolated, events. I look at these things as connected to each other. The internet world is connected. The cyber and global world is connected. It is not as simple as you or me being targets of phishing attacks and one account being swiped off all funds and we see a zero balance. No, it's not. It's way beyond that. It is. I think this is manipulation at its supported by technology, supported by countries, with a very deep state attitude or a deep state goal of dominance. in various players.
Okay, one second. Deepak, one second. I do want to ask Atul if he agrees with your perspective. It's a very particular perspective. I want to ask Atul. Atul, would you go so far as to say that it is and correct me, Deepak, if I'm summarizing your point wrong, but that it is deep state manipulation, it's something we need to be careful of?
So let me partially agree with Deepak what he's saying. I would not deny about it. He brought out 3 points. One is China, 2 is technology, and 3 is the hedge fund money that is there. 3 playing interplaying among themselves. This is quite possible that there's a high chances that this is an interplay of all 3 of them. But then let me be very frank with you. This is what is happening across the world. Okay. So let's not play around with the words that everybody else is bad and China is good or China is bad. And I'm not denying or I'm not supporting or accusing anybody of it. It's going to be the same. However, yes, one has to be very cautious when you look at this technology that is coming out of China. Because one of the reasons why we banned TikTok, if you remember, or PUBG, was the fact that there was a lot of data stealing. And we also banned those applications, the Chinese applications, was primarily because of the data stealing that they were doing at the back end. Now, we don't know. This is just recently launched by the Chinese. What is the trapdoors that they have in mind? Now, we're seeing a lot of cases of, cases being filed against OpenAI itself and the other large language models that are there. Claude being OpenAI is very popularly right now under DNPA. Right? There's a case that has been filed by DNPA and other news channels as well. For this, they have scraped data without the due permission of people. Now, my question happens to be on the similar lines. What are the trapdoors that you have? What are the things that you have got in mind? Second is, as I pointed out initially as well, and you also pointed out during your introduction, that questions regarding China, questions regarding Arunachal, let's take our strategic way. So it's also a way of influencing our minds.
Right.
So you start influencing today, tomorrow you will see the results coming out. And that was one of the reasons why we banned all these applications. And this is going to be happening in coming, maybe, may not be. However, just has to be one has to be very, very cautious before one comes down to that final conclusion that everything is good and everything is hunky-dory. Well, in today's technology world,
nothing is, as Deepak is warning us. Atul, can I just ask you a short question, and then I want to go back to Deepak, but I do want to ask if you can really break it down for our viewers with a simple analogy. How many times faster or greater is DeepSeek if you compare it to what exists already? So ChatGPT, what did the paper try to put forth in terms of just quantifying how much better it was?
So the paper actually talks about in terms of the computation. And they claim to be that they are using 27 times less power of computation. Now that actually, if you multiply it into a few ramifications and look at the ramifications in other aspects of life, one is obviously you wouldn't need so much of powerful GPUs that are currently there in the market. And we are seeing what is happening with the stocks of Nvidia and other GPU manufacturing companies. That's one. The paper also talks about the fact that they are faster and more precise. Now, when you say more precise, what do you mean to say more precise? Ask a question on Tiananmen Square to this, OpenAI, this
and it may
platform.
not, answer it.
It does not give answers. I've done that myself. You talk about Arunachal, it gives out all kind of hallucinating answers, which are not factually correct. You talk about the China-Pakistan corridor, CPEC, interesting answers come out of it. You talk about the Taiwan thing. It does not acknowledge Taiwan as an independent country or an independent state altogether. Gives out a lot of negative statements. I'm not again saying that others don't, but one has to be very cautious about all these things before one comes on. So in terms of precision, it is about the computational power that is very important. That is where they claim to be the big winner. And let's try it out. Let's see how it works out. Before we come down to the final conclusion that yes, it is true that it's not incorrect, factually incorrect, or scientifically incorrect, or mathematically incorrect.
Okay, Deepak, can I ask you, I think the question that Indian Twitter at least has been really, really chattering about in the last few hours is where's the Indian equivalent? We've had, in the past, we've talked about Bharat GPT, we've talked about Sarvam. When it comes to multilingual chat GPTs, to some degree that exists in India. But where do you think India is missing out? Is it a question of brain drain, that our talent works abroad? Do you think that idea is correct? Some are arguing that no, it's that India's biggest apps are apps that are versions of apps that already exist around the world. That's the problem. Where do you see the issue?
Well, there are a couple of things. One, if there is a brain drain, I mean, not everything is going out. So I think we have a surplus of brain. Let me just be a little optimistic on that part. So, and I'm also co-founder of the call center BPO Association of India. So we've seen enough brain and enough drain both on the sides. And we've done a lot of global business, and we've been, the so-called, poster boys to be hit with during US elections. Among the IT professionals, we were the only ones that were being talked about as the bad people who were taking jobs. Now, that's one part. Second, you just spoke about where India is. India is today. See, I think we're a very large country. We have a lot of positive. Education system is good. I mean, for the very simple reason that we have so many. I think let me just put it a different way. We have so much Indian DNA in the leadership of various tech companies. Now, coming back to what we are doing as India. Of course, you did name a couple of initiatives that the government is really pushing. The industry is very enthused. We have very large tech companies who understand that if they do not innovate, if they are not with the times, or if they do not step at least an inch ahead of the times, they will not survive positions in the future. Now, look at Nvidia. I mean, who would have thought a few years, even 10 years back, that a company could lose almost, or an industry could lose almost $1 trillion, and of which 70% could, 75% or 80% would just be one company. They would lose. Paper and stocks are paper money. Let's just put it that. Of course, there's value, but technically there's paper money. Now, who would have thought of that? Now, we live in very different times, and as we speak, I think the stocks of Microsoft and Nvidia have already started recovering. So I think it's a big, and I want to, if you allow me, I just want to go to an earlier point made a couple of minutes back. About what China is doing or what China is not doing. Now, how many times have we witnessed in the history of any new technology that companies who are trillion-dollar companies or close to trillion-dollar companies or, very large companies and leaders in their field, they've been affected within weeks. I mean, their stocks have gone down by such amounts. And there's a China factor. I think we need to look a little more closely. We need to focus the magnifying glass properly so that the picture is not hazy. We need to investigate this. Okay. The other thing I think that has been talked about is open source. Now, my co-panelist, Mr. Tripathi, he's already delved quite a bit on it, and I'm not going to get into details, but I'm just going to pick up 2 points from what he very rightly said. Anything that does not suit the China narrative is not being talked about by DeepSeek.
Right.
Now, when we talk about open source, we and especially in sense of technology, we only discuss how much of technology or how much of openness the technology is providing. I think we live in a very different world. We also need to...
Deepak, we're running out of time. We just have a minute left, so I do want to go back to Atul to ask him a question too. Atul, I want to take to you because it's too important a question to not take to both the guests. When it comes to the India question, what do you think is missing in the India story? What do you think India needs to build more of, if that's indeed what's necessary here?
So there are 2 things that I would like to highlight. One is India needs to, and which we are doing, I will not deny about it, we are building our own solutions for our own people. We are not here, and we should not even, that's my personal opinion, that we should not be getting into a race which is not going to be beneficial for us economically. There's a lot of money that is riding. So let's be very judicious with the money that we are playing around with. And most important point is that unless and until these technologies solve our problems, what is the use of it? I mean, I may be solving everybody else's problem, but if I cannot solve my own house problem, then what is the use of me being a very capable person as an individual? So similarly, just imagine the same thing happening with the technology as well. So we are doing it. Second is on the second point of the thing is that the languages. So we are multilingual. We have got so many dialects and speech and data. Just imagine what we can do. Data is the key, right? Everybody is fighting for data. Here we have so much of data with it, either spoken or written. And with 5,000 plus years of history, and with a language as rich as and as old as Sanskrit, which is supposed to be 5,000 plus years ago, and scientifically, so we are in a very good position. And it's not that we are not doing it; we are doing it. So you see, a lot of these young companies, they're solving our problems, which is very big requirement for our people, rather than getting around and playing around the games that may not be very feasible for our conditions.
So you're saying allow companies to continue solving the issues that they are solving. These are the right questions for us in India to be looking at right now. That's an interesting perspective, one we haven't heard so far. Atul, Deepak, thank you so much for joining us, for shedding some light on this topic. Okay, we're going to head into a quick break now. After the break, we are switching focus entirely. We're still taking a look at tech, and we're taking a look at Indian tech. ISRO is launching its 100th mission, and we're going to take a little bit of a look at that. Exactly what took place at around 6 a.m. this morning and what it means for India. On the other side in just a few minutes.
Listen, there's
शाम से इस जगह पर रेस्क्यू ऑपरेशन हो रहा है। बुराड़ी में कल रात तकरीबन 7 बजे एक 4 मंजिला इमारत गिर गई और उसके बाद से लेकर अब तक राहत और बचाव का काम चल रहा है। इस वक्त सीधी तस्वीरें मैं आपको दिखाती हूँ। ये जो तस्वीरें आप देख रहे हैं, ये टॉप एंगल शॉट्स हम आपको दिखा रहे हैं न्यूज़ 18 इंडिया पर कि किस तरीके से ये पूरी बिल्डिंग जो है वो ढह गई। और आप फिलहाल देख सकते हैं कि तकरीबन 4 से 5 जेसीबी है जिनकी मदद से मलबे को हटाने का काम यहाँ पर किया जा रहा है। और साथ ही साथ आप देखेंगे दूसरी तरफ एनडीआरएफ के जो लोग हैं वो लोग हाथ से भी मलबे को हटाने की कोशिश कर रहे हैं। यहाँ से तकरीबन 13 लोगों को रेस्क्यू कर लिया गया है और जिसमें से बताया जा रहा है कि 2 लोगों की मौत भी हो गई है। और ऐसे में फिलहाल जो यहाँ पर काम चल रहा है वो मलबे को हटाकर क्या कोई और लोग नीचे दबे हो सकते हैं, उनकी खोजबीन को लेकर चल रहा है। और फिलहाल 13 लोगों का रेस्क्यू किया गया है। उसके बाद से कोई रेस्क्यू फिलहाल होता हुआ नजर नहीं आया है, लेकिन अब ये मलबा हटाने के बाद ये देखा जाएगा कि कोई इसके अंदर तो नहीं फंसा हुआ है। अब तक 2 लोगों की मौत की खबर यहां से आ रही।
डरोगे क्या ऊपर से? आ गए? हाँ?
2 लोगों की डेथ हो गई तो उसको अपडेटेड कर दो।
ऑफिशियली नहीं हुआ ना।
और उन्होंने कुछ बोल ही पाया थे बिल्डिंग है तुरंत हम भागे हम सीधा।
देखिए अभी चुनाव का माहौल है, विधायक संजीव
Welcome back to the Breakfast Club. Let's now take you to a huge change that India has just made. And this is a change in the way that we keep time. India is taking a major leap in timekeeping. Indian Standard Time will now be determined through GPS satellites, ensuring precise alignment with coordinated universal time. So Nav SE is what it's called. It's India's indigenous navigation system, and it'll soon provide the reference time across the entire nation. So the National Physical Laboratory in Faridabad, it'll receive time signals from Nav SE. It'll then take those signals and distribute them across the entire country via optical fiber networks. What that means essentially is that time will be shared with centers in Ahmedabad, Bangalore, Bhubaneswar, Guwahati. Every state in the country will have its own atomic clock to ensure local accuracy. And this also means that smartphones, digital devices will soon display time that has been synchronized with that very atomic clock precision. But what is an atomic clock? What does that word actually mean? Atomic clocks are essentially the gold standard of accuracy. They function using the resonance frequency of atoms, allowing them to remain precise within a margin of just 1 second of every 100 million years. Now, why does any of this matter? With its own time distribution network, India will be able essentially to reduce dependence on foreign time systems, enhancing national security and obviously strengthening cybersecurity, something we've talked a lot about today. This technology will benefit critical sectors like power grids, like telecommunications, banking, defense, improving efficiency, security and coordination across the entire country. Okay, let's talk a little bit about sectoral advantages. Let's break them down for you. For power grids, what this will mean is more efficient load management and power distribution. When it comes to telecommunications, what you're going to have happening now is faster data transfers, seamless network coordination. When it comes to banking, you'll have precise timestamps for transactions, reducing fraud risks altogether. In defense, you'll have improved synchronization for critical operations. In cybersecurity, you'll have enhanced resilience against cyber threats and time-based attacks. Huge change coming across the country, and with this, India is moving towards an ultra-accurate, technology-driven time system that will transform digital infrastructure nationwide. Okay, speaking a little bit more about national achievements, the Indian Space Research Organization, ISRO, successfully launched their GSLV F-15 rocket carrying navigation satellite NVS-02 at 6:23 a.m. today. That's what we were telling you when we said that something huge happened at 6 in the morning. All of this took place at Sriharikota, and it marks the Indian Space Agency's 100th such mission. The mission was also the first for the Space Agency's chairman, V. Narayanan, who assumed office very, very recently. It's ISRO's maiden venture this year. As the 27.30-hour countdown concluded, the 50.9-meter tall rocket, emanating thick fumes out of its tail, you can see it in those visuals, lifted off majestically from the second launch pad in Sriharikota. Now, GSLV F-15 is the 17th flight of India's geosynchronous satellite launch vehicle. It's the 11th flight with the indigenous cryo stage. It's the 8th operational flight of GSLV with an indigenous cryogenic stage, and GSLV F-15's payload fairing is a metallic version with a diameter of 3.4 meters.
प्रज्वलन काल लगभग 111 सेकंड का है. इसके का प्रज्वलन लगभग 50 सेकंड और आगे चलेगा. इस तरह लगभग 150 सेकंड्स पर प्रथम चरण का.
All of that taking place before so many of us had even woken up. But let's take you now into a quick break. On the other side, we are taking you from the world of tech, from the world of space, into the world of music. This is a man who is uniting the world with his music that actually helps mental health. What are we talking about? We're talking about Padma Shri, Ricky Cage. He's already a multiple-time Grammy Award winner. He'll be joining us on the show to take us behind the science of creating his very, very unique sound.
You work.
जगह पर रेस्क्यू ऑपरेशन हो रहा है। बुराड़ी में कल रात तकरीबन 7 बजे एक 4 मंजिला इमारत गिर गई और उसके बाद से लेकर अब तक राहत और बचाव का काम चल रहा है। इस वक्त सीधी तस्वीरें मैं आपको दिखाती हूँ। ये जो तस्वीरें आप देख रहे हैं, ये टॉप एंगल शॉट्स हम आपको दिखा रहे हैं न्यूज़ 18 इंडिया पर कि किस तरीके से ये पूरी बिल्डिंग जो है वो ढह गई। और आप फिलहाल देख सकते हैं कि तकरीबन 4 से 5 जेसीबी है जिनकी मदद से मलबे को हटाने का काम यहाँ पर किया जा रहा है। और साथ ही साथ आप देखेंगे दूसरी तरफ एनडीआरएफ के जो लोग हैं वो लोग हाथ से भी मलबे को हटाने की कोशिश कर रहे हैं। यहाँ से तकरीबन 13 लोगों को रेस्क्यू कर लिया गया है और जिसमें से बताया जा रहा है कि 2 लोगों की मौत भी हो गई है। और ऐसे में फिलहाल जो यहाँ पर काम चल रहा है वो मलबे को हटाकर क्या कोई और लोग नीचे दबे हो सकते हैं उनकी खोजबीन को लेकर चल रहा है। और फिलहाल 13 लोगों का रेस्क्यू किया गया है। उसके बाद से कोई रेस्क्यू फिलहाल होता हुआ नजर नहीं आया है, लेकिन अब ये मलबा हटाने के बाद ये देखा जाएगा कि कोई इसके अंदर तो नहीं फंसा हुआ है। अब तक 2 लोगों की मौत की खबर यहां से आ रही।
करोगे क्या ऊपर से? आ गए? हाँ
2 लोगों की डेथ हो गई तो उसको अपडेटेड कर दो।
ऑफिशियली नहीं हुआ ना बिल्कुल।
और उन्होंने कुछ बोल ही पाए थे बिल्डिंग है तुरंत हम भागे
तो ये देखिए अभी चुनाव का माहौल है। विधायक संजीव यहाँ
Okay, we're taking you now to stories that are taking place in India and across the world. First, something that took place right here in India, but we're taking you to Mumbai. Sabyasachi's extravagant fashion show. It's proved to be the epitome of what achievement looks like within the fashion industry. All of this took place on Saturday, Jan 25th. The renowned fashion industry leads celebrated 25 years of being in the fashion industry, showcased a grand fashion show at the Geo Convention Centre in Mumbai, and you also had on display, as you can see, all of those cutting-edge designs. You had Deepika Padukone and Christy Turlington closing the show. And we take you to a zoo in Chessington. This is the world of adventure outside London. It had a busy day providing spa-like treatments and performing health checks for their animals, from food pedicures to home treatments and fecal sampling to weight tracking. The zookeepers were hard at work to ensure all 1,000 of the attraction's animals were set for a healthy year ahead. 5 bachelor Rothschild giraffes were given hoof pedicures. The zoo's resident southern white rhinos had their home treated with salve to prevent cracking, and breaking their hooves were treated with all kinds of creams and ointments. Hundreds marched with torches and burnt a replica ship to mark the ancient Viking festival of Uphelia. The highlight of the event is the burning of a replica Viking longship. The ancient ritual is held on the last Tuesday of January. And Britain's Prince William getting up close and personal with worms on Tuesday during a visit to a farm in Hereford in southwest England. The Prince of Wales met with the farming family who own Lower Blakemore Farm, and they toured the facility, as you can see, to learn more about its regenerative farming techniques and its different composting projects. This is one of the 7 of Prince William's focus farms. What it is essentially is an initiative intended to highlight the transition to greener farming practices. And taking you from everything that's taking place in Mumbai to the world of fashion, Chanel assembled a sprawling runway set in the form of its trademark interlocking C logo for its Spring-Summer 2025 catwalk show held at the Grand Palais in central Paris. Models paraded pastel-colored lineups of glittering dresses, tailored jackets along the white carpet of the sloping set, emphasizing the shoulders. That's where the jackets were emphasized, which were obviously bulked up. There were trim jackets with round, broadened shoulders, sheer dresses. This is one of multiple fashion shows taking place as we speak in Couture in Paris. And what you're looking at is the White House in a quiet corner of the city of Rio de Janeiro in Brazil. It's been attracting a stream of visitors. They're eager to see the family home portrayed in the Academy Award nominee film I'm Still Here, in which a mother of 5 rebuilds her life while struggling to uncover the truth about her husband's forced disappearance during Brazil's military regime in the 1970s. Today on the show, we're so excited to have for our person of interest a true global icon, Ricky Kedge. He's a 3-time Grammy winner. He's one of the coolest ambassadors our planet has. And as of this weekend, he's also a Padma Shri awardee. Now, Kedge's music blends ancient Indian rags with modern soundscapes. And today we thought we wanted to have him on to take us into the science. What goes into actually creating this very, very unique sound? So he joins us here on the show this morning. Good morning, Ricky. Thank you for joining us, for taking out the time. Congratulations on your award. And you actually said, I believe, that it marks a new beginning in your career. What does that mean?
So that's the way that I look at honors like this, because, the Padma Shri for me, of course, it's an absolute dream come true, but it's not an end goal. It's not the end of, the game of my career. I believe that it's a new beginning for me to do bigger and better things, and for me to, because all of my music has got a very important message, whether it's environmental or social, and that's the only kind of music that I make. So for me, this Padma Shri is about giving me a platform so that I can stand on that platform and spread a message of awareness and celebrate what needs to be celebrated in our country and reach that message further and wider, and that's what I'm going to do.
Okay, Ricky, you've talked a lot about this idea that there's a new sound coming out of India. What do you mean when you say that?
So even though I've lived in India all of my life, I've been exposed to various forms of music around the world, and all of that finds its way into my music. And that's why my music is my own unique blend of fusion, which is how I am as a person. I'm a very fusion person in everything that I do, the clothes that I wear, the food that I eat, the way I talk, the language that I speak. So that obviously reflects on my music. But in particular, when it came to Break of Dawn, I've been 2 things my whole life. I've been a musician and an environmentalist, 2 pillars that have pretty much dictated my whole life in every single life decision that I've ever made. And very early on in my career, I decided that I'm not going to be a part of the mainstream movie industry actively, because there are so many things that I want to speak about through my music, and I'm going to be utilizing music for that, for speaking about the things that I want to speak about, and for expressing myself as an artist. So it's always been about the environment. It's been about social causes around that area. But I remember in 2015, I'd watched a speech of Prime Minister Modi. This was at Samvad, a Hindu-Buddhist conference. And he quoted some ancient Buddhist philosophy where he said that the impurities of the environment is in direct relation of the impurities of the mind. So in order to purify the environment, you first have to purify the mind. And that sort of stuck with me for all these years. And that is what actually started the album Break of Dawn. I realized that I need to focus on mental health, because with all these problems that we face on our planet, we are only curing things symptomatically, only on the surface. If we want to get to the root of the problem, we have to create a more compassionate society. And to create a more compassionate society, we have to take care of our mental health. And what better way to do that through Indian-rooted wellness music? So that is why what I call Break of Dawn as Indian-rooted wellness music, because I think Indian classical music and Indian traditional music is the best way to bring about mental wellness.
Why do you say that though? What about classical Indian music is so mentally restorative? What do you think is inherent to it?
So, Indian music is very improvisation based. Indian music has got rags. So what we did with this particular album is that I chose 9 rags, which are known to bring about mental wellness. 9 rags which are known to, calm the mind, soothe the mind, unclutter the brain, reduce stress. And what I did was that I created 9 compositions based on these 9 rags. And then I did not stop there. I decided to get in touch with institutions, with scientists all over the world to try to study what has been done in the past, because there have been lots of studies conducted when it comes to the effect that music has on our minds and the correlation between music and mental wellness. Lots of things have already been published in Lancet reports, and various institutions all over the world like Stanford and Monash has already done studies on this. So I actually went through all of these studies and I realized that the best way to do this is basically rag based music, and that's why I went ahead with it. And as I said, Indian music is very improvisation based, so it's based on a lot of feel. And these emotions, these emotions are very good ways to actually, express ourselves and also to reach those expressions to our listeners. So that is why I feel that Break of Dawn is the best way to bring about mental wellness. And this is what I tell everybody, that try and listen to the album for the entire 1 hour of the album. And and surrender yourself to the music. Don't try and do something else and listen to the music in the background. Just close your eyes and surrender yourself to the music. And I'm 100% confident that you'll come out of listening to that album in a much better mood than you were when you started listening to it.
But can we ask you, is there a contradiction for you in there? On one side, obviously, Indian music is supposed to be impromptu. It's, about being in the moment and creating. Jugal bandis, for example. But part of what you do, you have to record that. And so, in a sense, you're freezing it in time. Is that a contradiction? I know that senior experts, you had Ravi Shankar, for example, who would talk a lot about that contradiction. What's your experience been?
Yes and no, because at the end of the day, rags are very well-defined scales if you look at it academically.
Right.
But they have been defined so beautifully with its ascending and descending notes and the feel between the notes and the quarter tones that, that a musician actually has got more freedom even if they stick within the framework of that rag. That's how beautifully it is created, these rags. So I guess there's a lot of freedom for the musician to play within these rags and to improvise and to create very, very long pieces, and at the same time also creating shorter pieces of music. But I believe that, there are 2 ways to look about this to answer your question. One is that, okay, a live performer is performing in front of an audience, and within the moment, the live performer is like, has got this collective consciousness with the listeners and creating a piece of music impromptu on the spot, and the listeners are feeling that kind of music. Or it could be that, I'm feeling sad at a particular point of time, and I'm playing a piece of music that I would create in an improvisational moment while I'm sad, and I would record that, and it would go into posterity. And when somebody else is listening to that piece of music while they are sad, they would feel the exact emotion that I'm feeling at that particular point when I recorded that piece of music. So I guess the connection always remains between the listener and the person who has created the piece of music, whether it is a live recording whether it's a live concert or whether it is a recording that has been played back maybe after 100 years.
Ricky, do you think something like Reels, Reels use music that is catchy? Do you think that is harmful or beneficial to the format of music that you create?
So what ends up happening nowadays is that the only kind of music that is pushed on to us is the music which has got the largest marketing budgets. So if it was purely based on preference and purely based on what actually works or what actually connects with people, then I would have no problem with the algorithm. But unfortunately, that's no longer the case. The case is that whatever is being pushed through paid marketing is what is going on to people. And that is the reason why it's only mainstream that is being pushed to people. Like, for example, you mentioned Pandit Ravi Shankar. everybody knows who he was, one of the greatest sitar players ever in the history of music. In fact, some would consider him to be the greatest sitar player and the greatest Indian classical musician that ever lived. And everybody knows who his daughters are. Everybody knows about his family life. Everybody knows that he won the Bharat Ratna. But if you ask anybody on the street or any of your viewers watching this, if you ask anybody, name one album of his, nobody can name that. Or name a tune of his, or name or just hum a tune of his. Nobody can do that because somehow we've been disassociated from his music because of the way the algorithm works. Being the greatest classical musician of our times or even of all time, it is very surprising that none of us have ever been pushed Pandit Ravi Shankar's music through the algorithm, and that shows that the algorithm somehow does not work because it's only marketing budgets that is pushing music to us.
Okay, can we go back for a second to talking about your music? Part of the cause of creating your music, you've said, is to create music that's mentally restorative. So you listen to it and you get a sense of mental calm. What's your dream for your music? Would you like it piped through classrooms, through halls, so young students can hear it, for example?
So for me, my music, as I said, is music with a purpose, and I would love that purpose to be served. And it is serving its purpose in many ways. Like, for example, you said classrooms, you said halls. I created this project known as My Earth Songs a few years ago, which is about 30 songs based on sustainability for children. So these are adolescent rhymes, very easy to understand, very easy to learn, very catchy rhymes, all very positive, speaking about different aspects of the environment and social and positive social transformation, but made for children in a very positive manner. And currently we are in more than 20 million textbooks all over the world, and we are constantly reaching out to more and more kids and more schools in English-speaking countries all over the world. So that is sort of like, very fulfilling for me, because we receive a lot of positive feedback from parents and children and teachers about how this music is transforming, children's thinking. The songs that you learn during a childhood are songs that you never forget. And if there are any morals in those songs, those morals stick with you forever. So that is one aspect of it. And the other aspect of it is, of course, Break of Dawn. Break of Dawn has received a citation from the Stanford School of Global Health and Stanford School of Global of Biodesign for alleviating the global issue of mental health through Indian-rooted wellness music, which was quite powerful. And that is why what we are trying to do right now is putting this music into clinical trials.
That's so cool. So, I love that the science is backing the music that you're creating. Can we ask you what your advice to anyone young who's listening right now is? I just want our audiences to know you're someone who actually holds a degree in dentistry. You then went down this path. You're also the youngest ever Indian to win a Grammy. Anyone who's trying to look for what their unique calling is, what are your words to them?
So for me, my father, he's an Indian parent and he's a third generation doctor. So, he knew that I'm going to be a musician for the rest of my life. And he also knew that I was good at my music. He would love my music. But at the same time, for some reason, he had never articulated it in his mind that I would take music as a profession, because he never thought music could be a profession. So in my 12th grade, when I told him that I wanted music to be my profession, he was, justifiably furious. And because he could not imagine in his head that I could make a profession out of music. So after a lot of heartache and a lot of pushing and pulling, a lot of arguments with my parents, we reached a compromise that I would finish off a degree in dental surgery. And once I got that degree, he would never question me again for the rest of my life for any life decision I would ever make. And he kept to his promise, and I kept to my promise. I went to 5 years of dental college. I finished off the degree, gave the degree certificate to my father, and my father has never questioned me again for the rest of my life. So to answer your question about what advice I would give to young people, of course, a lot of young parents come to me, not young parents, parents come to me of young kids, and they tell me that, my child wants to get into music, what should I do, and all of that stuff. So I tell them very clearly that if you feel that your child will be successful as a musician and is a good musician, you will know about it, and you will not have doubts in your mind. And when it comes to kids who say that, oh, my parents are very strict, they'll not let me be a musician, I want to be a musician, what should I do, how do I make that my career path? I've got sort of like rude advice to them. I tell them that if you are not able to convince your parents, no matter how strict they are or how closed-minded they are your parents after all. If you're not able to convince your parents that you will be a successful musician, you will never be able to convince a million people that your music is good.
That's solid advice. Okay, Ricky, can we ask you lastly, on the Breakfast Club, we talk a lot about mental health, mental issues. We talk about people's struggles with depression, with anxiety. Is it something that you've ever struggled with yourself? And has music helped you in a particular moment? Is that how you made the connection essentially that, you know, music is the answer to all of this?
For me, I've been extremely fortunate in my life that I've got supportive people around me, and also my career has flourished year on year. So I have not had this issue of mental health in my life. Also because I'm constantly immersed in my work, so I've never had that issue. But at the same time, I've had a lot of friends who have gone through mental health issues. One advice that I would give everybody is that mental health should be taken very, very seriously and without any stigma, simply because mental health has to be looked upon as any other non-communicable disease that anybody may have, like for example diabetes or a blood pressure or any heart issue. It needs to be looked upon like that, because sometimes a person may be depressed, and I've had friends like that who have gone into depression, into clinical depression, when there is nothing wrong going on in their lives. And sometimes I speak to them and I tell them that why don't you look into your life and see that there is absolutely nothing wrong in your life, but even then they are depressed, because it is like a non-communicable disease and it needs to be looked upon very, very seriously, and it needs professional help, and it should not be stigmatized. So that's the only thing that I would like to say about that. But to answer your question, in my life, I've never had such an incident, and I would not like to belittle people who have had mental depression issues by saying that I've had an issue, because nothing has been that serious in my life when it comes to mental depression.
Ricky, thank you for taking out the time to join us, for having such a vast conversation with us, right from the science behind why you create what you create to how the science is supporting what you are creating right now, studies that are actually studying the kind of music that you're putting out and its effect on the human brain. Okay, that was Ricky Cage. We're going to end now with something slightly different. Let's take a look very quickly at the world of finance. We're bringing you a special section on financial markets powered by Money Control Pro, Money Control's premium destination for investing and business insights. Let's take a look first at the markets. GIFT Nifty in trends indicating a stable opening for Indian stock markets. US stock markets are rebounding on Tuesday after bargain buying in tech shares. This is after DeepSeek routed the previous session, what we spoke about. Asian indices were trading higher, tracking the gains in the US market. Investors await US Fed Reserve decisions on interest rates. Let's take a look at sectors in particular. In the sector in focus today, in recent years, interesting healthcare business models have become accessible to equity investors through listing. Now, the latest one is a proxy for the domestic eye care market. Eye care service chains from about 15% of the Indian eye care market, but a large part is served by standalone eye clinics or hospitals. Now, this in itself presents a significant scope for large organized chains. And you can log into Money Control Pro to find out more about the Indian eye care sector and various other actionable insights on the markets. It's the premier destination for all investing views and financial insights you're ever going to need, brought to you by Money Control. All right, and with that, we are drawing our show to a close. We hope you found today's episode deeply informative. We'll see you tomorrow. Have a lovely day.
शाम से इस जगह पर का रेस्क्यू ऑपरेशन हो रहा है।